Go.
Hey guys.
Welcome back. We are all the way through 2020 fantasy football season. We made it, you guys.
We did it. Now it's over, and now we can look back and we can be sad that fantasy football over, but be happy that it happened.
Be happy that it happened. Hey, and we've crowned a champion, and he's right with us right now. Balls first himself.
It's been a long time.
The champ is here.
The champ is here. That's feels good. Feels good.
Invisible high five. All right, just kind of looking through. Here's where it stands. Biggest blowout of the week. You kind of helped us out with this screen. Kind of an anticlimactic finals here.
It was. You had predicted maybe the under, but Crew's team just did not show up, and it was pretty bad. That Chiefs Falcons game went about perfect for me. He made the right call getting Swift out of the lineup, but it still didn't matter. Like nobody else, like there really wasn't anything he could have done, unfortunately. So it's kind of sad because he'd been putting up, high 500s, low 600s pretty much every week. So, and then my numbers are pretty skewed by Stephon Diggs going absolutely bananas on Monday night. So
you're 21 away from doubling them up. That's impressive, man.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome to do that in the championship game, and Drew was no pushover as far as like the players he was bringing in. So that's a W right there. Good job, man. And how many rings is that?
That's 3.
3 rings.
Yeah.
Wow, that was like Bears Patriots Super Bowl 20 right there.
Nice. Hammer time.
I would have let Peyton score a touchdown.
Do you want to predict? Nice one. Do you want to predict a repeat right now? You want to go on record?
No.
All right. All right, guys. Well, this was fun. Let's take here's kind of we kind of just mapped out our next 2 shows. Yes, we're planning on at least one more show. We're going to look back in this show, look back on the season, and then hopefully in our next show we can kind of look ahead with kind of a preview of next year's draft board and get into other things like that. But let's worry about that next week. Right now, we'll take a peek back at the season of 2020. I threw this one up. I don't know if you guys are like me and kind of when you're done with fantasy football, you're done with fantasy football. But I happen to be on it tonight, and they have kind of a cool graphic. It's Yahoo's projected standings, which you got to take with a grain of salt because they kind of skew our keepers a little bit. But they take Yahoo's projected standings versus the final standings, and pause on this screen if you're watching this and kind of check this screen out. It's kind of fun to play with. If you're on Yahoo, you can kind of hover over and get a little more info. Phil, you said you played with this, right?
I looked at it. I think on the phone you can't do the hover over thing you were talking about. Gotcha. But I got an alert on my phone. I don't know, like 11 o'clock this morning or whatever, Vegas time. And I was like, all right, I'll click on this. And it had all these cool graphics, and I even gave them a thumbs up on it because it asked for your feedback. I was like, this is cool.
Nice. Yeah. So
it just shows Yahoo sucks at this, though. They cannot predict anything.
Right.
Their league champion is 7th. The second place team is 11th. That was trash.
Yeah, so if you're graph illiterate like I am sometimes, the teams to the far right on the bottom were projected high, and so that's Nate and Goody. They were projected first and second, and then up and down is how they actually finished. So that's not where you want to be. You want to be towards the top of this graph. And anyway, it's fun to play with. I recommend going on Yahoo and trying it out. Mike, how do you feel about, did the disrespect kind of fuel you throughout this year that you're projected 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7th? or nah?
Oh yeah, absolutely. You know, it really motivated us. I gave Derek Derek Henry. I'm on a first name basis. I gave Derek a call for the season. And was like, hey man, I know you're a December runner, but we're gonna need some, you know, some 4 months production out of you this year. He's like, I got you, Mike. So, you know.
Hey, he had your back, dude.
This was your billboard material here.
I remember I remember specifically when we drafted years ago at Blake College, and Ben was sitting there and he would always collect like the projections, and he loved always being like the top projected points, and I'm just like, projections mean nothing.
Right. Yeah, it's strange. It's strange. All right. I'd also someday like to do a study of teams that have just stayed with the helmet, the classic Yahoo helmet that they give for the graphic, versus those of us who have added like our own images.
Mm.
And I'd like to say that just me and Drew are the ones that have done players for their images. We've got a Mahomes, we've got a George Kittle. All right. Cool. Here is the draft board. So again, we're gonna look back. Let's take the time machine way back to that lonely day in August when we had to draft on Zoom.
Yeah. So what I kind of did with this is I went by, and with the all-knowing gift of hindsight, I went by, and this is not like being critical of where they were drafted at the time, but like what they ended up being as a player. And I rated them by the best pick and the worst pick. And I went through each of the first 8 rounds, and then I did a couple of notables after that. Tell me what you guys think, and I'll give you my reasoning. For the best pick in the first round, I went with Kelsey. I mean, obviously that's kind of a homer pick, but he was so huge for me. Maybe offensive player of the year. He broke records at tight end. Such an advantage week in and week out to have that guy. And obviously was a reason why I was able to go out and add and kind of build my team around. Other picks, you could have looked at Tyreek Hill. But look at, and obviously Dalvin Cook, you know, is another guy. But I think Kelsey with his consistency was why I went there. And then for worst, I actually picked Zeke. I mean, obviously you could say Saquon because he didn't play, but I think Zeke's worst because you have to put him in your lineup, but he didn't do anything. You know what I mean? It's like, so that's why I went with that one being the worst of the first round picks. So.
To me, I'm on board with Kelsey for sure. Just like, look at what a train wreck this first round was. I think the only possibilities for best pick are Kelsey, Tyreek, and Dalvin Cook. You might make it Josh Jacobs, I guess, but everybody else either busted or was injured quite a bit, so that was tough. But yeah, I think Kelsey for sure with his production. And then worst pick, I think I would say Kenyon Drake, just because with Zeke, he has had that like he has a history of success and production, where Kenyon Drake was more. I know he produced a lot more than Zeke, but he was not the league winning, you know, 5th overall guy that you need right there.
Okay.
So yeah, I was gonna go with Tyreek Hill, but I'll defer to you guys with Kelsey. The guy who drafted Hill ended up trading him away, so I'll go with Kelsey. And then I agree with Zeke being the biggest bust. You could go with Saquon again, but I think the injury is why you kind of give him a pass. Zeke played almost every game and still was trash. So he's number 2 overall pick, played almost every game. You know, same thing about McCaffrey. You know, he missed a ton of games, but you know, at least that was because of injuries. Zeke it was bad, just in general.
Just awful. I agree.
For the second round, I thought it was pretty easy choice. I went Calvin Ridley being the best pick. And then for worst pick, I went with Mark Ingram just because what the heck happened? He was like a big part of their offense, you know, big trusts and all that. And you know what I mean? Like, it just phased out, didn't do much. Then he was hurt, and then it was this, and their running game. Like now that they're even playing good, he's still not really a part of what their success is. And for a guy that's been like a producer in the league for a long time to just like disappear, that was pretty painful.
What do you want to go with, Phill?
So yeah, I agree with on Mark Ingram. In fact, on some of the notes I made for today, I made the worst move for everybody in our division, and that's what I put for Ben was Mark Ingram in the second round. So yeah, I got to agree with that. Mark Andrews, you could say too, only because he was just really inconsistent. He didn't live up to the second round hype. Not that he's a bad player, but he kind of performed more like a fifth round pick this year. So he's kind of an honorable mention on the bust side. And yeah, I mean, Amari Cooper kind of was a bust too. That had more to do with quarterback injuries with his team. Yeah, there was kind of a lot of letdowns in the second round.
Yeah, this round was a train wreck. Ridley really performed. He's right. He's taken the torch, I think, from Julio. There's a lot of dogs in this round, you guys. Like I'm leaning towards Le'Veon Bell as being the worst pick. He was on my do not touch list.
Me too.
I was sure. So I mean, it's crazy because Drew took him. I was 100% mind made up that Drew was going to take Jonathan Taylor, who I got one pick later. So I don't like that one. Honestly, guys, though, to me, the worst pick is Darius Leonard in the second round. He didn't have his elite year. And the other part about it is Goody then traded him. Like, was it even before the season started? Or I think it was even before the season. Like, I don't know why you would invest in a player in the second round and then turn around, especially a defensive player, and then turn around and give him up.
Yeah, don't take a linebacker in the second round, guys.
Sure
Come on.
Would have been there in the third also.
Yeah.
So to me, I'm leaning towards that one. Ingram was just a train wreck. Troop too. If we're talking about lack of production, I'm going to bring the guy up later. Kenny Galladay. Really, that injury really hurt Seth's season, and I'll get into that more. So I won't say anything else about that. Ready to jump into round 3?
Yeah. There's actually quite a few good picks you could have chose here. Deshaun Watson, but obviously that's a pretty standard pick for him to go about that spot. Keenan Allen, Terry McLaurin, David Montgomery at the end of the year, Tyler Lockett were all good picks. But I went with Jonathan Taylor just because I honestly thought it was a bit early. I'm not a big rookie running back fan. But the way you set up your draft, John, was you were like trying to hit on guys, you know what I mean? Because you didn't have those top 2 picks or whatever.
John, stop hitting on guys. Your wife doesn't like that.
Well, he was trying to hit big, and he did. I mean, if you look at his first 3 picks, they're all good. But Taylor was that guy who he benefited from, number one, from Marlon Mack being hurt, so he got more carries early. But as the season wore on, he's really looking like a really good player and probably easily going to be the number 1 in Indy next year, even with like Hines and maybe Matt coming back and other guys. So I went with Taylor. For the worst pick, I went with Leonard Fournette. He didn't even make it. He didn't even make it to that roster. And then he was picked up in split time, and he never was considered like the number 1 back there. Even if he was with Jacksonville, he's still just one of those guys that has never really lived up to the hype. So yeah, I went with Fournette there.
This is tough for me to find like the MVP. I guess if we're kind of thinking best pick or MVP of the round, I think the MVP of the round is Montgomery. I hated the pick when you made it, man, because he's coming off a groin injury, like I don't know, like 8 days before the draft or something. But he's the MVP of the round, so he turned into gold for you. I also, so I'm leaning at that one. I got to tell you guys, like DJ Chark was a real bust this year. He was a bomb. He was a dog this year. Fournette was off. Like there's some, it's not, guys, and listeners and whoever made these picks, we're not like picking on you for doing this. Like these players were all really rated high and they just did not perform.
We did a pre-draft show where we talked about guys being drafted and we felt like everybody was drafted pretty appropriately.
Right.
This is like
I can't take a lot of credit for Taylor. The Mac injury was gigantic, and he also started really slow. So, so I don't think that's the gold level pick. So Montgomery would be the MVP. In hindsight, if he would have stayed healthy, I would have taken Mostert in that spot. Mostert, a healthy Mostert like dominates this round, I think, but he didn't stay healthy. As far as like picks that I didn't love or worst picks, Devin Singletary, and I'm biased because I was really into buying into the fact that Moss was going to be the guy. So I thought I really did not like the Devin Singletary pick because I got who I believed was the starter and kind of was the starter like 4 rounds later. And so I lean towards Devin Singletary as the worst pick in that spot. Phill, want to go?
Yeah, so I think you got to go with Fournette, and this is certainly no diss on Seth for the pick because at the time he looked like he was by far the lead back in Jacksonville. Nobody was really concerned. Drafted J-Rob, so you would have thought that was a great pick at the time, and then he blew up in his face. He got cut, and just the whole nine. That just was a terrible pick, not because it was a terrible pick, just the way it played out, unfortunately. And then Singletary's the runner-up, and it comes up into my research today was because of something I did. The worst move I made all year was trading for Singletary. I tried to do a buy low on him. I'm thinking, oh, he's going to bounce back. I offered up an 8th-round pick for him, and I should have known when it was accepted so quick that was probably a really stupid idea. So, yeah, he was horrible, scored 2 touchdowns the whole season. I never even played him. I traded an 8th-round pick for a guy I never even put on my active roster. It was terrible. There's a ton of great hits in this round. It's real hard to really narrow it down. I would, if we'd done this 6 weeks ago, like John was saying, I'd go with Mostert. I loved that pick, and I was kind of mad I wasn't able to get him because that was coming up to me with the 4-1 pick. So I was really hoping he would have been there for me. So I loved that pick, and if injuries wouldn't have came in, I think that would have been the best pick in the round. Instead, you probably go with Kareem Hunt or Jonathan Taylor. Kareem Hunt was solid all year, and especially when Chubb was out, he put up some really nice.
Sweet.
Yeah, I had Mostert keyed up as well, and then ended up getting Montgomery, which ended up working out in the end. Funny enough, as we move into the 4th round here, I was actually going to plan on taking Devontae Parker, and Seth took him there, and I ended up with Diggs, and also that worked out really well for me too. So, so for best pick in the 4th round, I actually tied. I went with Russ and Kyler for you and Ryan because without those guys, neither one of you are anywhere close to relevancy in that, in the middle of the year. You both hung in there as long as you could. You both had chances to make the playoffs because of what those guys did. Obviously went in about the right spot, but man, they were just so special this year. Russ kind of tailed off at the end. Kyler had one more big boom of a game to get the most points scored. And obviously Stephon had that huge Monday night game that I ended up not needing, but before that, I think he only had like 4 or 5 touchdowns all year. So not like super consistent, but I didn't even play him every week, but he was obviously, so he's him and Allen have a special connection now, but yeah, so for the whole year, just being the as good as they were, I went with Russ and Kyler. For the worst pick, I went with Corey Littleton for Nate. Again, that's really early for a defensive player even there. And then he did not do much. He spent some time hurt, and even when he did play, didn't produce that much. So that was a pretty easy one.
Yeah, Corey Littleton for sure is the worst pick of that round. That's not even close. He's picking splinters off of his behind most of the year. He ended up being like 4th or 5th on the depth chart at linebacker for the Raiders. It just turned out being a free agent move that the Raiders really regretted. I'm pretty sure he's going to be cut in the offseason for sure. And then as for the best pick, yeah, it's hard to argue against Kyler or Russell. I do love the Stephon Diggs pick. And that was actually number 2 runner-up for me on my worst moves of the season. I made a mistake when I was doing my draft like crossing off the guys who had been picked. So when I was up at 4-1, I also knew I had 4-4 coming right behind. So I thought I had an opportunity to get one of those 3 wide receivers. So the 2 that you see there, Parker and Diggs, and I thought Lockett was still on the board. So I thought I could take a risk on taking DeAndre Swift at 4-1 and then come back and get whoever was left of those receivers. And then boom, Parker, boom, Diggs. And then I tried to pick Kyle Lockett, and then John jumped on and drafted Kyler right away while I was scrambling, like, oh crap, he was already picked, and I had to find I got lucky that Jones ended up panning out. I just had to put a name in there. So yeah, it was terrible. I should have took Diggs at 4-1. 100% should have took Diggs at 4-1. Might have been a different season for me to have Hopkins and Diggs together, having a really solid 1-2 punch. I think that would have definitely seen my season come out a little differently. So I'm just gonna give myself the runner-up prize there. The Corey Littleton pick's terrible, but me screwing up my draft board definitely belongs in there as well.
Right on. Corey Littleton's the low. I mean, look at Nate's draft. He really, and on this whole screen, he really only hit on Allen Robinson out of the 9 picks it's showing right now. That's tough, man. Better look.
Cunningham was good.
What do you say?
Zach Cunningham was good. That's what I traded for.
Cunningham was good, but he's a defensive player. I don't know. Guys
was tied for the league in tackles. I mean, yeah, that's not very good.
What round did you take him in? Round 6? I mean, here's the thing. Everybody's best linebacker should be in the top 10 in tackles, right? So, whatever. Yeah, I mean, I love the Diggs pick. Kyler was my entire team for several weeks. So I'm going to give co-MVPs in this round to Diggs and Kyler. Russell Wilson started as the MVP, but I'm not going to give him like that was the greatest pick, because I think in my mind, I think he would have taken Kyler. So I kind of made the Russell pick for him. So I'm not going to say that was the best pick of the round. All right, let's talk about round 5.
Okay. For 5, it was a little harder to find like a great pick, but just because the way he played up until his suspension, and that should give it away, I did go with Will Fuller here. I could have given it, I suppose, to Fred Warner, but like I said, I feel like that was probably pretty. It's just one of those picks where, you went in about the appropriate spot. For worst pick, Kerryon Johnson. That was terrible.
Nice. Let's see. I'm just kind of glancing at this quick. Yeah, man. The Will Fuller pick, like the stuff I was researching about him said this was a boom year for him. This was going to be good. But then as every week progressed where he wasn't getting injured, I was like, I have to trade this dude before the injury happens. He's at peak value. And I cashed in just a little bit before he had a suspension. So that's wild. I want to lean towards more like most I also like Jarvis Landry was a good pick for Seth. Seth has like an interesting draft going if we kind of like take this back apart, because he took Galladay and Landry. Yeah, carry on. Who knows what's going on in Detroit? I read today. Did you guys hear today that Urban Meyer might be coming back to the NFL? And he's a Lions candidate. It's Lions, Jacksonville, or Atlanta are seriously talking to him.
Oh, I didn't hear about Atlanta.
Let's see. Other worst picks. I don't know. There's good names in here. I kind of like there's like sexy names in this round. Carry On's the one that didn't pan out, so I guess I got to go there. Want to go, Phil?
Yeah, there's a few guys that didn't pan out. Obviously, Carry On, but I think maybe the worst is Jordan Howard.
Yeah.
Outside of, he got some goal line carries that did score him some points, kind of periodically throughout the season. He was pretty much trash. Marlon Mack, mainly only because of injuries, though, so you can't really count that against Drew with his homer pick there. His first pick in the draft, or first of his own picks in the draft anyways. T.Y. Hilton was a guy I had on my radar. He was a bust except for the last couple weeks down the stretch there. So, yeah, you make your pick there. I'll probably go with Jordan Howard. But I think the best pick was CeeDee Lamb, and I thought that was a bad pick during the draft, not because have anything against CeeDee Lamb. I thought he was going to have a nice rookie year or whatever, and I wish that the Raiders would have picked him. But I just thought that was way too early. I was looking at him as like round 7. I just thought that was way too early, but ended up panning out pretty nice. So I think that actually was a really great pick.
I agree with you, Phil. That CD had a nice. He's a really good player. I want to change my vote. I think we have. I know I have like a short memory. Do you guys remember when Joe Burrow was just slinging the ball? He has a connection with Tyler Boyd, and I think that was a good pick because Tyler Boyd never really had his breakout until like Joe Burrow was slinging it to him. So I think that was a savvy pick that you went with Boyd there. And it's kind of funny to hear like how you came up with a receiver because you were counting on Diggs or Parker or whatever, and then you kind of took what was left, but that turned out really, really nice. He's a good player.
Okay.
Yeah.
In round 6, pretty easy for me. I went with Josh Allen. What can you say? The dude just worked himself into MVP talk. He's been unbelievable. For worst pick, Phillip Lindsay was a disappointing pick, and then also Tevin Coleman ended up being bad too. I think we were both trying to find, before keeper round type value with running backs. Phillip Lindsay's was a 1,000-yard rusher both his first 2 years. I honestly didn't expect Melvin Gordon to factor in that much. I think he's overrated, but he actually had a pretty good year when he wasn't drunk driving. And but Phillip Lindsay, even though he did get some chances this year, didn't really do much with them. So it kind of ended up being a meh.
Can I get something off my chest before Phil goes?
Yeah.
Do you guys know that I had Josh Allen as a keeper going into this year? Did you know that I kept AJ Green over him?
Damn.
AJ Green, you mean the guy you released because he didn't do anything?
Yeah, and then funny story about that. So I released him because he didn't do anything, and then Dom picked him up, and then Dom is trying to get George Kittle from me, and Dom includes AJ Green in the offer for George Kittle. You know how I got AJ Green on my team in the first place? In the Michael Thomas trade that I completely botched. My literally reply to Dom, and I swear to you, is this: are you trolling me by including AJ Green in this offer?
Oh man.
Couldn't make it up. Anyway, go ahead, Phil. Tell us about your thoughts on this round.
So the name at first that jumped out at me on the bus side was Phillip Lindsay, as Mike already had talked about. But then it's Coleman. Coleman did absolutely nothing. There were injuries that could have given him a chance, and still he couldn't just take the reins. Everybody in San Francisco's backfield had a nice season whenever they got a chance, except for Coleman. So that was a huge bust pick. Obviously, you can't pick anybody outside of Allen for the MVP of this round. Though it was the round I got Blake Martinez, who was Mr. Consistent for me for a while. But yeah, Allen by a mile.
I like Blake Martinez. I think Roquan is to be in that conversation too. Then, if we're talking about good defensive players in this round,
sure.
Aaron Donald's in this round too. But then I scratch my head because that's Goody's 3rd defensive player in the top 6 rounds. So that's tough, man. He's filling up his defense that early. The pick that's the flop here, I think, is Matt Breida. What happened to Matt Breida? He signed the big free agent contract to go to Miami and be the man on this up and coming team, and he doesn't even play. I don't know. But yeah, Josh Allen is the super stud of this round and maybe the entire draft.
So Ryan went back-to-back Jordan Howard and Matt Breida, but he didn't make up for it by getting Myles Gaskin. So it's like he finally hit on a Miami running back.
That's awesome.
Shall we move on?
Yeah, let's move on.
All right. For number 7, I went with Deontay Johnson for Ben as the best pick. He had a frustrating year to be certain. But still, I thought it was a good pick. And then for a worst pick, I ended up going with John Brown. I thought he could have done more in Buffalo, and I know there was some, he had some good games, and then he had some injuries, but he's one of those guys that it kind of ended up being an afterthought after a while, and with the year Diggs is having and Beasley's kind of taking over as a number 2, it was kind of disappointing for him. There wasn't a whole lot to hate in this round. So that's kind of why I just went there. I want to say I hate Evan Ingram for making the Pro Bowl over Tunyon, but
yeah.
This was like the old quarterback round of teams who needed a quarterback before, the young kinky guys got picked.
Yeah.
I think I'm with you on Deontay. Deontay was for a while in and out. He was the top option in Pittsburgh, and then Claypool had a run. Then Juju had a resurgence, and then kind of back to Deontay, but Deontay couldn't hold on to the ball. So I like Deontay a lot in this round. Phill Higbee, I don't know if that was the pick over Ingram. And then Carson Wentz was a train wreck. He didn't. How long did he make it last on your team, Mike? Because basically your pick of Wentz, didn't that lead directly to you having to go out and buy, Watson?
Yeah, I tried from week 2. After week 2, like, remember Cam Newton had those big back-to-back games, and I made an offer for him, and then Goody went crazy with his offer. And then I talked to you about Kyler and Ryan about Russ, and I ended up getting Deshaun. In hindsight, when he played, he actually scored a decent amount of fantasy points. He just really sucked as a player. So, it wasn't the worst pick ever, but I was hoping for more for sure, because I was actually pretty happy to get him right there.
Yeah, I mean, you get a former MVP right there. Absolutely. I'm not saying it's a bad pick. It didn't produce,
Yeah, for sure.
Because I like him more than I liked like a Matt Ryan or a Drew, definitely over Drew Brees. I like Brady more, but anyway, whatever. Did I talk about? Yeah, I did. I just got done. Go for it.
Yeah, you're done. Okay, cool. So you gotta like the Deontay Johnson pick. I think that might have been as far as value, the second best pick of Blizzard's entire draft. Next round we'll talk about obviously his best one. But I actually think Zach Moss, I'm surprised this didn't get brought up. Zach Moss is a nice pick there. Would have been a nicer pick if it was around later and you get to keep him. But yeah, Zach Moss, I think provided value at that 7th round grade there. And yeah, I'm gonna stick myself on the Higbee. Outside of that 1 week where he got, was it 3 touchdowns?
Yeah.
Was it week 2 or week 3, whatever it was? After that, he was garbage, and I ended up dropping him. So yeah, that was not a good pick, at least beyond like week 3.
I got good value out of Zach Moss, but if you look at my team and my roster makeup, like I drafted him to be my starting number 2 running back, and he didn't perform that way. He scored week 1, and then he like pulled he did nothing for a couple weeks, then he pulled his hamstring, and then he did finish strong. So his value looks good, but he did not have a strong season for me.
Well, wait until round 7 to get your number 2 running back. That's kind of on you there, John.
Hey, the rest of the screen worked out pretty good for me. I'll tell you that. All right, round 8, shall we?
Yeah, round 8. Phil kind of hinted at it, but it's got to be Justin Jefferson here. I'm not even gonna belabor the point. Antonio Gibson was nice too. Don't get me wrong, but Jefferson was a freak this year, and looks like he's gonna be a freak for a long time. So that's a wonderful pick by Ben. For the worst pick, obviously we made the post-draft swap of Ruggs and Simmons. So I went with myself for basically getting Isaiah Simmons, who I didn't even keep on my roster for, I don't know, 4 to 6 weeks because he wasn't playing. And even though he's playing a little bit now, still wouldn't have been a great pick. So yeah, that was bad.
Phill?
Yeah, there was a couple really good picks here. Levante David's a great pick. He was an awesome linebacker this season. I think Joe Burrow ended up being a really good pick. Hopefully he can get healthy again and produce the way he was. Jerry Jeudy is unfortunate he got hurt, so we didn't really get to see if that was a good pick or not. But obviously Justin Jefferson is the pick. That was definitely the best move that the Blizzard made all year. Guy had 1,267 yards on the season. He's still got another game, obviously, but that's huge in fantasy. He's number 10 fantasy wide receiver. as a rookie in the 8th round, and Ben can keep him forever and ever and ever. So obviously that's by far the best pick. And he had there's another good one with Michael Pittman Jr. He came on late in the year. Be interesting to see if White Thunder goes ahead and keeps him. Yeah, obviously the worst thing was the one really dunderhead thing that Mike did this year, picking Henry Ruggs and then trading him because he obviously didn't have a plan with what he was doing with the first pick in the 8th round, which is a huge pick in our league as the first keeper. So yeah, you definitely got to wear the dunce cap for that one there, buddy.
Wow, went in hard. I'm excited to have an 8th round pick next year.
No, I don't. Damn you.
If the 49ers don't have Ayuk on their team, I love Deebo Samuel as a player. So I like that. He got Deebo pretty late because the kind of the rookies and the unknowns got picked before that. So I think Deebo fell. So that's good value there. Although I'm not sure anymore with Ayuk being in the picture, how good he is. Guys, am I the only one in this chat that would rather have Antonio Gibson next year than Justin Jefferson?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, that was an awesome pick too.
Next year, I would rather have Antonio Gibson on my team than Justin Jefferson if they're as a keeper.
I still would go with Jefferson, but yeah, Gibson, that was an awesome pick. But that's the next round there too, right?
No,
he was round 9 pick, wasn't he?
Gibson is round 8. Gibson.
Oh, I thought he was round 9. My bad.
Gibson was taken 2 picks before Jefferson.
Oh, okay. I have my notes wrong. Sorry.
It's just the kind of the fact that it's Minnesota and Thielen's there and Kirk Cousins is there. And I mean, Mike Zimmer's there who's not going to air it out. So I would rather have Antonio Gibson in like a Christian McCaffrey role on my team next year than Justin Jefferson. There it is.
Christian McCaffrey.
Well, he's on Mike Rivera's team or Ron Rivera's team.
Yeah, I know.
He's a receiving running back. He played that role this year.
I didn't do round 9, but if you guys want to talk about it, you can.
Nah, I'd like to move on.
Let's move on.
I did for some notables. I did say obviously Justin Herbert at 18.8.
Yeah.
Johnny Smith at 18.11. Jeremy Chin at 16.6 and Ayuk at 12.6 were all also really good picks.
Sweet. I was really excited. I'm excited about Laviska Shenault, and I hope Trevor Lawrence is in the picture. I'll consider keeping him.
For sure.
That's that. So we went through our divisions and we looked at each team and picked a team MVP. We haven't talked about how we're going to talk about this.
You start, brother.
Sweet. What's the name of my division? The infantry? Cavalry? Whatever. My division. It's not my division, it's Seth's division. So let's start at the bottom. So Goody took last place, then it was me, and then it was Dom, and then it was Seth. Starting at the bottom, it was a little bit tough to find an MVP for the old Goody class. I'll use the term old. So I went with Old Man Brady. So Tom Brady was the 9th overall scorer in the league. Tom Brady is a stud. He's surrounded by stud receivers. I'm excited to watch him in the NFL playoffs. Imagine how good that team's going to be if Brady's back and they're intact going into next year after a full offseason in OTAs. Brady was awesome. Goody went and traded like the world for Cam and didn't start Brady for a lot of his games too. So, I did a little bit of what ifs in this little activity. If I'm going to, and I know you can't do this, but if I inserted last year's stats into the production that these teams didn't get, Christian McCaffrey would have been the number 3 overall player this year, and the number 1 running back. So just a second. So that was a tough break. But Tom Brady gets the MVP for Goody's team. I'm going to move a little bit faster going forward. Steel reserves. My MVP, let's see. Jonathan Taylor's in the conversation. He finished as the number 8 running back. James Robinson is in the conversation also. Where are my notes on James Robinson? After I traded for James Robinson in week 6, he scored a TD or a touchdown in all but 2 of those games. And in those 2 games, he did not score a TD or a touchdown. He scored 24 points and 30 points. What a stud. James Robinson, 815, Rockford in the house. My MVP, however, was Kyler Murray. He had 5 100-plus point performances in weeks 1 through 11. And his worst game was a 68-pointer. So he started me strong, and I think that's what you want in fantasy, to start strong. Moving quicker. Dom, second place. Dom had an awesome team. Didn't get it done, though. His MVP was Josh Allen. He was the number 1 quarterback. 3 of the last 4 games. You want to finish strong, too. 3 of the last 4 games, he was over 100 points. What a beast. Really quick, if you substitute Michael Thomas's last year into Dom's this year, he'd be the number 3 receiver. If you substitute Zeke's last year into this year, he'd be the number 4 running back. So those are some what ifs. Kind of fun to think about what ifs if you hate yourself. All right. Final. Champion of the division. Well done, Seth. Incredible. Champion of the division. I listed 3 options for MVP I considered. Here's the surprise one. TJ Watt. He had an awesome year. He was over 50 points in 4 of his last 7. TJ, you knew you were in for a long day when you faced Seth because of that defense. But the real reason you knew you were in for a long day is because he had Aaron Rodgers and Davante Adams. Aaron Rodgers was the number 4 overall player with 1,196 points going into week 17. And my MVP for Seth is Davante Adams, who on a points per game basis, he has over 61 points per game played because he missed a few games. He had 5 games over 90 points. Are you serious? He was less than 40 points only 3 of his starts. Now, some people might want to knock him for missing a few games, but like it's not like real life. In fantasy, like we kind of know ahead. We have a feeling, and then we can go out and grab someone off free agency so it doesn't kill you if players miss. So my MVP for Seth is Davante Adams. That is the division in a nutshell. I'm in a nutshell.
All right. I want to go next because I think Mike should go last and do his team last as the champion there. I wanted to chime in real quick on what you said there, though. I would say Rodgers only because without Rodgers, Davante Adams doesn't put up any stats. He's got him on the same team. So I would have went with Rodgers. But, you know, you can't argue. They're both obviously studs, and he's always going to be a contender in this league by having both those guys as keepers as long as those guys are still playing and still healthy and all that good stuff. So moving on to the MVPs from my division, and I, like John, forgot the name of our divisions. I think I'm in the Cavalry division, but I really don't remember. I'll start with Brigadiers, who was our representative in the playoffs, who won the division. This one's kind of a no-brainer, I think, although he had a lot of great moves that he did throughout the season. It's hard to even pick a bad move that Brian made all year. But his best move was Herbert in the very late rounds. Now he has him as a keeper. He set a rookie record, 28 touchdowns, over 4,000 yards, number 10 scorer in our fantasy format. So, yeah, you got to go with Herbert. His defensive player of the year, Roquan Smith, who he made a trade for, just another example of great moves that he made. Number 2 in fantasy points defense, tied for league in tackles. I mean, he did a really great job this season. It just didn't work out for him down the stretch. Yeah, it's hard to pick anything bad for Brigadiers. And, yeah, you just got to go with Herbert. I can't think anybody else who is more fitting to be his MVP. Moving on to my team, Big Philly style, it was kind of a 2-horse race for my team. My depth really wasn't fantastic, especially after the trade deadline when I moved a lot of guys, realizing I'd fallen out of contention. So it was really down to, thankfully, 2 guys I can keep with Lamar Jackson and DeAndre Hopkins. I did go with Hopkins only because, Lamar had a down year, at least for his standards, and really wasn't the top 10 quarterback I expected him to be, except for down the stretch, which didn't mean anything because I didn't get to the playoffs. So I'm going with D-Hop. He was 9th in wide receiver points in our league. He is a keeper. He was 2nd reception, 2nd in yards. If he would have found the end zone more, he very well could have been number 1 or number 2 wide receiver in our league format. My defensive player of the year is Joe Shorbert. He was 3rd in fantasy points from defensive players in our league. And yeah, that's kind of the contenders for my league or for my team. Moving on to Withers winners. This ties into something when we were doing the draft breakdown. That round where just all those good quarterbacks went with Kyler and Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson is by far the MVP of the Withers winners. He's number 5 player in our format, just over 1,100 points. Russell Wilson definitely the MVP for Withers. Although his defensive player of the year almost single-handedly beat me in week 12 with Chin. Actually 4th in points on defense in our league. Scored 191 in week 12 that I was just talking about. He made a lot of nice moves. He picked up Tanyan. Chin, he's a keeper, so that's awesome for him, round 16. I think he should have made more moves at the trade deadline. If he would have been more active at the deadline, the only real move he made at the deadline was a bad one, trading me Aguilar and a 7th for Boyd. Not because Boyd's a bad player, but because how it played out with the quarterback injury there. Maybe last but least, we'll go with Ben, the Detroit Blizzard. His MVP and just his all-around best move of the year. You got to give a little tip of the cap for Ben for Justin Jefferson that we already talked about. 40th overall in our league, 1,267 yards, number 10 wide receiver, 7th in yards. On a team that really didn't have a lot of standouts. He was an amazing standout for his team. And yeah, he's a keeper. He can keep him forever. His defensive player of the year was Kenny Moore, number 79 overall. Number 8 at D-back, though, 503 points. We talked about his worst move was Mark Ingram. But his best/worst move at the same time was the Cook trade. It was a great trade because he got a first-round pick. He wasn't going to make the playoffs, so it was a good trade that way. But also it was a bad trade because maybe he should have gotten even a little bit more. And obviously he traded away one of the 5 best players in fantasy football this year. So it can kind of go both ways depending on how you look at it. But that's all I had to say about our division. Move on to the champ.
All right. Okay, I'll kind of do the way John did it. I'll start at the bottom. And with Kyle. With the Thunder, his team MVP would obviously be Tyreek Hill. Oh, wait, he traded him. I mean, Keenan Allen. Oh, wait, no, he traded him. How Deshaun Watson? No, he traded him too. How about Darren Waller? No, he traded him. 4 good players all on the move. I ended up going with Burrow for him. By the end of the year, his roster was bad. Burrow missed the last 5 weeks, and hopefully he comes, but only because he's a keeper. It was really hard to find something. For Nate, dirt balls, it's got to be Kamara. What an absolute monster. Ended up finishing, 7th in the league in points. The number 1 non-quarterback. Obviously spurred by that 196 6-touchdown performance. Scored over 100 points 4 times in this year. Even with that in his back pocket, Nate couldn't contend with some of those bad picks we talked about. For a caddy, obviously you can look at, obviously it's Mahomes, and much like the league MVP, you can say, oh, it's Mahomes every year, but let's pick somebody else to keep it interesting. I went with DK, obviously getting him at the beginning of the year and being able to keep him. I think DK's performance early in the year, coupled with Mahomes, was the reason why Drew was able to go out and acquire some other pieces and make another run at the thing. I think that was like the key move early on that was like, okay, I can do it again this year. And for me, I talked about him a little bit already, but Travis Kelce for me, just what a huge year. He's not fair. He's a cheat code. What he did, setting the record for yardage for tight ends, and only guy with more than 100 catches for tight ends again, and he finished 22nd overall in scoring, which is bananas. Just I have nothing but great things to say about Kelsey. So
Good call.
I did want to address something you said. You said Devontae Adams wouldn't put up stats without Rodgers. Well, the year Brett Hundley started, Adams still did his thing. Jordy Nelson completely disappeared. Adams was still getting it done. So I wouldn't say that he wouldn't produce, but obviously not at the same level. Those guys are on like a different planet right now. That last throw against the Titans down the sideline, that was so amazing.
I was looking at some stats on Devontae Adams. He had 8 games where he had a mixture of these things. So sometimes he had multiple of these things: 100 yards, or 10 catches, or multiple TDs. He did that 8 times.
Jeez.
Travis Kelce did that 7 times, and then that's a tight end, so that's freakishly amazing too. So anyway,
and the thing is, like, teams know that 17's getting the ball. There was like a really cool, I don't know if you follow on Twitter, a guy named Dusty Evely. He does a lot of Packer stuff. And he showed a still picture, and it was like he had a defender on either side of him in the end zone, and he showed a still shot, and like, this play was a Devontae Adams touchdown, because like he stopped and broke back, and they just kept going, and he ended up wide open in the end zone.
Well, look at that score he had against the Bears and Rodgers does this every game against the Bears, at least the last couple. They get in the red zone, and the Bears go into this they drop into a zone. They drop 8 into coverage, and Rodgers dances around, and then he lobs one up to a little tiny space, and the Bears there's 4 Bears just looking at each other, and Adams catches it easily. Like he'll do that again on Sunday, guaranteed. Just it's wild. Anyway,
so should we pick a league MVP?
Here's what I was thinking. We've all nominated the division MVPs. What if we make a poll, put it out to the league, and the players.
Some people don't like polls, John.
The players we've nominated, and then we can vote on it.
So one from each division. You want to put them up in the poll?
No, not one from each team.
Oh, okay. So
it would be a 12-person.
Wow, the player I would have voted for, Mike didn't nominate, but that's all right.
Who's that? Dalvin?
Derrick Henry.
Oh, okay.
We could have a write-in.
I like it. We haven't done any polls in a very long time.
To be continued. We'll think about it. Happy New Year's, guys. Thanks for watching. Thanks for playing.
Happy New Year.
See you next week. Subscribe.
See you next year. Like and subscribe. We got a weird comment in our week 12 show. I don't know if you guys saw that.
No.
I'll have to look at it.
Yeah, it's from maybe it's somebody you know. Sorry. I don't know. I didn't know. Anyway, take care. Be safe. Happy New Year. Bye.